The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Paltalk.com, AVM software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users on demand on iTunes and on YouTube. And on my site, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you are encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with yours truly or not, no retribution. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we are syndicated across the United States into 12 million additional households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten, and my guest today is Stephen J. Cannell. You know him as the creator of TV's most enduring and iconic characters. He's also the author of the acclaimed New York Times best-selling Shane Scully crime series. He's a prolific writer. Despite the fact, I bet you didn't know this, he's dyslexic, and yet he has written so many books. He's responsible for 40 TV series, including The Rockford Files, The A-Team, 21 Jump Street, all television shows that appeal to me. In case you can't place the name with the face, he's the guy who types on the typewriter at the end of the show and then grabs the paper out of the typewriter and throws it over his shoulder. Okay, now you know who I'm talking about. Stephen J. Cannell, welcome to News Talk Online on Paltalk.com.
Well, thanks a lot, Gray. It's good to be with you.
It's great to have you here. You have written a great book that is not a Shane Scully crime series book. It's called At First Sight. It's a novel of obsession. And I got to tell you, the name of the book is apropos because, of course, it's talking about a guy on a vacation in Hawaii, a married guy, and he sees a married woman. At first sight, he falls head over heels. I won't give away the plot beyond that, but I will tell you that when you read it, the book becomes a book of obsession because I must tell you this, Stephen, the first chapter, the end of the first chapter, if you read the first chapter, which is only like 3 pages long, you will be hooked on this book because the way you end each chapter almost compels the reader to read the next.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, I think I got that technique of writing doing television for 40 years, where you had an audience with a channel changer in its hand, and you had to at the end of every scene, you had to put a hook in there to keep them going.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, this keeps me going. And I will tell you another thing about the book. I have not finished it, but I will. But the thing is, when you start reading this book, you almost feel sorry for your main character, but as it goes along, he's a hard guy to like.
Well, that was the point. He is the, even though he starts off as the narrator of the novel, and it's an I narrator, and he's telling the story. The first quarter of the book, I tell from Chick's point of view. He's down at the pool in Hawaii, and he sees this girl coming out of the pool. She's half his age. She's happily married, as you said, and it's love at first sight. He's just obsessed with her, and that obsession ends up producing 2 murders, and he destroys everybody's life, and along the way discovers he's sociopathic because he never knew that about himself, but as he continues to get spun deeper and deeper into this, thriller, he becomes more and more deranged in a way. He begins to realize that he doesn't have normal human emotions about the sorts of things that he's doing, and it's a real thriller. And the ultimate hero of this novel is Paige Ellis, the woman who he falls for, because as I go along in the book, I start in Chick's I narrative, and then in the second quarter of the book, I alternate between Chick in I narrative and Paige in third person. So every other chapter is a Chick chapter or a Paige chapter. And then in the third segment of the book, I bring Paige into I narrative, so she now is telling the story, and I'm using Chick in third person, alternating chapters. And at the end of the book, it is in Paige's I narrative. So she, emerges as the story is being told as the hero or heroine of this novel. because she ends up having to save herself from what is basically a guy who is totally out of control.
Well, I had a close personal relationship once with a sociopath, and I actually, after that experience, I went out and I bought all these books that talk about individuals who are sociopathic, to try to just understand what I had gone through. But this thing, when you read the character's chick's narrative explaining why he does things, I mean, justifying doing the worst things in life, I said, holy camole, now I get it, more so than when I read the scientific book.
Well, and the other thing, I hope you found it sort of funny. I mean, it's darkly funny, I think, this novel, because his rationale for his behavior, it's absurd, but there is a line of logic to it all, in his mind, and as he's explaining to the reader why he has to do these dastardly things, there is, I think, a good deal of humor in that.
The other thing that really spoke to me was the hip detective, and I will tell you why. I know that you're a bit of a cop buff. It's obvious in your Shane Scully writings. I know you like to ride around, or used to ride around with the LAPD. Well, when I was a reporter in Detroit, I rode around with the cops so much that not only did the people we deal with on the streets think that I was the police, but so did the cops after a while, And there was a detective, a homicide cop in Detroit, who was from the South. His name was Jesse Whitcomb, and we all called him Pappy. And he talked real slow and, almost the same dialect as your guy did. And I got to tell you, he was not the brightest bulb on the marquee, but he was the most tenacious detective I've ever met, and his aw shucks attitude was disarming, and people ended up revealing more to him than